Welcome back to the Entrepreneur Mindset Podcast. Business takes money. Depending on the business you start, it can take very little money, like when you start up a coaching business, or it might take a little bit more money if you're starting up, say, a product-based business where you need to have product available to ship or to sell in a store. But regardless of how much money you need to get started, money quickly becomes a prevalent concern as a business owner. But it isn't something that we discuss very often or even openly. Today, that changes. I want to start pulling back the covers on finances as an entrepreneur, and we are going to start thinking about what to consider as you are faced with potential expenses or options or opportunities inside your business. I'm Dr. Moore, a college psych professor, homeschooling mom, and entrepreneur, and I've spent the past 10 years learning how to balance everything. Here on the Entrepreneur Mindset Podcast, I'll share the ins and outs of maintaining a growth mindset and saying hello to grit, that thing that will get you to your long-term vision despite challenges and busy schedules. After all, you got into business to do more good in the world, right? So let's get started. When I first started my business, I didn't really give a lot of thought to money, at least not at first. I knew exactly what my expenses were and how much I needed in order to break even on expenses in the first year, how much revenue I needed. But what I didn't take into account were the little things that I would need along the way. Well, I needed to create social media posts, and so I paid for Canva. Then I needed a paid Zoom account because I was hosting calls that were an hour or 2 hours long. Then it was a light for my office. After trying every conceivable lighting situation possible, we were pulling lamps from all over the house trying to get the lighting right in my office. Then I was sharing my husband's work microphone for calls and podcast recordings, but that quickly became a hassle to move it from his office and setup to my office and my setup. So I bought a mic. You can see where this is going, right? The expenses weren't just the website and the membership area that I had initially thought about. Then there were the other expenses. These were the ones that cost more than $100 or $150 a year. If you wanted to learn how to best create a membership opportunity, you purchase Stu McLaren's course, The Membership Experience. If you want to learn about launching, you purchase Product Launch Formula, PLF, from Jeff Walker. Digital courses your jam? No problem. Amy Porterfield has Digital Course Academy, and the list goes on and on. Each of those opportunities are in the range of $2,000. So you can see it adds up. And each opportunity can feel like the next right step. But regardless of whether you have endless funds as a startup business, by the way, if you have endless funds, that's super cool. Or if you need to be cautious with your money, like we did, it's always wise to examine each expense with care. Otherwise, you are going to find yourself in debt that doesn't feel figure-outable, to borrow Marie Forleo's phrase. Now, because I'm a learner and an enthusiast of all things tech by nature, as a business owner, I quickly came up with a process for evaluating expenses. And today I'm going to share that process with you for a few reasons. First up, I don't think entrepreneurs talk about the reality of money and how to spend it in your business often enough. And second, if this episode helps even one person avoid a debt that doesn't make sense for their business, I consider it a win. It's all about the ripple effect. If this impacts just one person, they get to make a different decision in their business impacts someone else, and we see the ripple effect happening. So that's why I wanted to sit down with you and really have a discussion about finances today. And I want to walk you through the process, like I said, that I use in my own business for evaluating opportunities, especially more pricey ones in my business, because like I said, I love to learn, which means all of those $2,000 courses feel like the perfect opportunity, but they aren't always. So to start the process, I always take time to reflect on my business. I want you to think about your annual goals, your quarterly goals, and the resources, tools, and skills that you need to make those goals a reality in your business. And you might be thinking, but Dr. Mora, I kind of know this stuff already. I don't need this step. I'm going to skip over it. The consequences of skipping this step are akin to skipping the chocolate chip cookies in a chocolate chip cookie recipe. Very dire. So don't skip it. Once you have done a little bit of a reflection in your business, you know what your annual and your quarterly goals are, what resources, tools, and skills you need to make those happen, then you can get to the facts about the expense that you are considering. What does that really mean? Well, it means how much does it cost? You need to think about whether or not it's a recurring expense or if it's a one-time expense. You need to think about what skills, tools, and resources it provides for you and for your business. And I want you to think about how often it's available. This last one might seem a little bit strange, but many of the courses out there, especially courses, are launched just once a year. So if you don't purchase during that launch, you are waiting another 12 months for the opportunity. And it really makes you stop and think, right? So go ahead and get some of the facts about the expense that you are considering. Once you've done a reflection of your business and you've gotten those facts straight, ask questions if you have to. Then you can really begin moving through the decision-making process. And this is a really intentional process. It's one that typically leaves you feeling pretty good about your decision, no matter what the decision is at the end of the day, whether you choose to take the opportunity or not. You leave feeling really good about it because you know you did your due diligence in deciding whether this was a good fit right now. Okay, so the first question that I like to ask is whether this expense, this opportunity is going to put my business at financial risk. Now, if you are just starting out, this question might be bigger than whether it will put your business at financial risk because you might be using your family's funds to get your business going. I know that's certainly been our case. We used our personal family funds to help the business get going. So be sure to expand this question to include your family finances if that's the case. If the opportunity puts either your family or your business at risk financially, add that expense to a wish list and go back to the activities that are going to generate you revenue and focus on generating revenue for right now. If your business or your family finances or the combination can sustain the expense, go ahead and keep going through this decision-making process. I'll be really straightforward with you here, though. This is a difficult step. You have to be really honest with yourself and recognize when you truly need to say no, even if you really, and I mean really, want to say yes to something. There have been plenty of times when I had to say no. And I will tell you that sometimes you might be able to get creative here. You could swap one expense for another. I recently did that because one expense was more important right now, and the swap would offset the new expense. So I traded it out. It was, I'm not going to lie, one of the hardest decisions I've made in my business to date. I know it's the right choice. It still makes my tummy a little rumbly because it makes me sad, but I know it was the right choice. And I also know that I'm working extra hard to be able to get back to that other expense as soon as possible. So I'm working to generate more revenue so that I can get back to that place that I want to be in. So I know it's hard. I'm telling you this because I get it. It is hard sometimes. And this question about finances and financial risk and whether you need to swap something or say no to something altogether, it is critical to do this as an entrepreneur if you want your business to be sustainable. Now, if your business and your family funds or whatever combination we need to talk about here are good with the expense, let's keep going, okay? With some peace of mind that the financial risk is manageable, you can now focus on your goals. You've already outlined them. I asked you to do that at the very beginning with dire consequences if you did not, much like leaving the chocolate chips out of the chocolate chip cookies. I want you to first ask yourself whether the opportunity supports your annual goals. If it doesn't, I want you to check in with your quarterly goals. And if the answer is still no, if it's not supporting your annual or your quarterly goals, the opportunity would probably be a distraction. So move it to your wish list for another time. If the opportunity meets your annual goals, I want you to get really specific. Identify which goal or goals it supports. This again requires honesty. I want you to be really, really honest with yourself. Does the opportunity truly support one of your goals? Then, if it supports your annual goals, I want you to keep going. I want you to explore whether or not it's going to help you achieve your quarterly goals. Now, if you're paying attention, you'll know that even if your annual goals aren't being met, I asked you to think about quarterly goals. And I said what to do if it doesn't meet quarterly goals. If you get to this point, whether because you are meeting annual goals or not with the opportunity, explore the quarterly goals. If your quarterly goals are being met, this might be a good fit for you. But what happens when it meets your annual, but not your quarterly? That's where it gets a little bit more complicated. If the opportunity is offered at a different time in the year, then it might be best to put it off until then so that you don't get distracted. But if it's just available once a year and you'll need it for your annual goals, then it comes down to whether you can stay focused while going ahead with that offer. So you can see there's a little bit of wiggle room here. Explore the annual goals, explore the quarterly goals. If it doesn't meet either, put it on the wish list. If it meets either annual or quarterly, explore it a little bit more. We can keep moving through the decision process. We can still be really intentional here. If you ultimately decide that this opportunity is a good fit with your goals, next it's time to take a closer look at the resources, skills, and tools that you'll need to acquire for your annual and quarterly goals to become a reality. And I want you to answer the question, does this opportunity meet those needs? Is it going to give me what I need in terms of resources, skills, and tools? If not, or if it clashes with the other resources, skills, and tools that you're using, the opportunity might be best passed by for now. Maybe put it on your wish list. But here's the thing. If you're kind of in a rut with your business and your business needs a bit of a shakeup, maybe you still go ahead and say yes. So in that case, I would say, let's keep exploring. Now, if the opportunity aligns with what you need, that's fantastic. I would still encourage you to explore whether there are less expensive options that would be equally well suited. What you gain, so question yourself, what do I gain by choosing one opportunity over the other? What do I lose? Because sometimes something that's less expensive may be missing key components that you'll need. Sometimes it truly is an equally good opportunity for less money. Maybe it even fits your schedule better. Or maybe the more expensive opportunity fits your schedule better. So I want you to explore, what do you gain by choosing one over the other? What do you lose? If there aren't any other suitable choices available, it sounds like what you're exploring right now might actually be a good fit. And it's worthwhile to continue moving through the intentional decision-making process. So if you are still on the pathway to vetting the opportunity, next up is to explore the support that's offered as part of that opportunity and whether you can be successful in implementing the resources, skills, and tools that you're learning or that are provided. This is where you need to get crystal clear on the outcomes you expect as a result of your investment. One of the neatest things I ever saw was a laser coaching session where you had to submit your question ahead of time. And one of the questions on the form was, what would be the best possible outcome from this conversation? And so I bring that question to this decision-making process because I think it makes you really step back and say, what do I actually need from this? What outcome am I expecting to have happen? Because if you don't know what outcome you expect, it's really hard to get that outcome. If you know what your outcome is, you can work and make sure you're using everything possible to make that outcome a reality. If you look at the outcome that you want to have happen and you realize that there isn't enough support for that to become a reality, explore whether additional support is available. Some programs, services, or products have an upgrade for additional support that you can consider. I just want you to keep in mind that a lot of times that comes with a higher price tag, and you may need to go back to that beginning and think about whether this is doable with your current financial situation. If you can't get or afford the needed support, it might be, once again, a wish list expense for now. If, on the other hand, you feel pretty confident that you can implement the resources, tools, and skills effectively, you have enough support, it sounds like the decision is pointing toward a yes. I want you to explore how this feels. If you have a weird feeling about it, your gut's kind of churning, I want you to note that and explore it a little bit further. Sometimes those gut feelings are telling you something that all of your intentional decision making with a decision tree and everything just can't get at. Although this is the process that I just described, it's the one that I follow when I make a decision. I also step back at the end and look at the big picture, because you might find that the decision you're being led to make doesn't feel right. Recognize that feeling, explore where it's coming from, and then ask yourself, how will I feel in 30, 60, and even 90 days if I choose the opposite path? And if I go with the decision as it was kind of presented in the decision tree, through this process I just walked you through, how are you going to feel in 30, 60, and even 90 days? Is your stress going to be through the roof thinking about the money? Are you going to be on fire, getting things out there, building revenue, meeting new potential clients? What does it look like in 30, 60, and 90 days if you say yes to the opportunity or if you say no to the opportunity? Your business is yours with which to make decisions. The key is truly to be intentional with your decision making, not to just bury your head in the sand about money. That's what this episode is really about. It's about creating an awareness that we often fail to cultivate as business owners because money is such a taboo topic, even today. So I want you to be intentional and keep your eyes open about your business. And that brings us to our action item for this week. What can you do? Okay. We are in a season where lots of courses are beginning to open up. I know in my email this week, I've already had 3 major courses that I'm being pitched to purchase. So if you are currently considering an expense, and start with something small, if you just want to buy a new microphone or you want to buy a new ring light or LED panel that maybe is under $100, still run it through this process just to get some practice. If you are considering an expense of any kind, it could be, like I said, big, like a course. It could be a new piece of software, a membership, a purchase, even something small. I want you to run the decision through this process. And if you are more of a visual kind of person, you like a flow chart or a decision tree in front of you to do this, I've got you covered. What I want you to do is head over to Instagram or Facebook and DM me the word decision. And remember, you can find me at Entrepreneurs in Flow, both places, and I will send you the link to grab the PDF that walks you through the decision process so that you can kind of look at it right alongside the podcast episode as I'm walking you through each piece. But I want you to put the decision process into play on something. Maybe it's not this week because maybe you aren't purchasing anything or considering it, but maybe there's something that you could consider and just get some practice now when it isn't as big of a deal as when you're considering that big course that's maybe $2,000 or $3,000, or even a mastermind that might be $10,000 or $25,000. I want you to do all this now so you get practice at it. When you get to the big stuff, it's going to feel really good to know that you've got a process in place. So how are you feeling about money and spending inside your business right now after we've talked through a process for thinking about your finances? Does it feel a little bit more doable to make financial decisions that are intentional and not just maybe impulse buys or ones that leave you feeling a little queasy in your belly because you're not sure exactly what impact it's going to have on your business financially? If you are feeling like it's a little bit more doable, that's definitely my goal. I want every entrepreneur to feel comfortable with the money side of their business and to know how to evaluate different opportunities along the way. I want this to be a conversation that as entrepreneurs we have openly. Because believe me, there are so many different opportunities that you have in front of you that you have to learn to either say yes or no to or wish list it. As you work through this process, you'll get better. You'll get more aware of what works for your business, what doesn't, what you actually need, what is just one of those shiny objects that might lead to a distraction. As you work through your intentional decision making this week and in the coming weeks, remember, if you want kind of a PDF copy of what we talked about today, DM me at Entrepreneurs in Flow on Instagram or Facebook for the free PDF that walks you through the steps we discussed, complete with a decision tree, flow chart, whatever you want to call it. And I will see you back here next week for another episode of the Entrepreneur Mindset Podcast, where a focus on mentoring, community, and implementation removes the overwhelm of building your successful and profitable business and adds in a dose of momentum. Until next time, have a healthy, safe, and happy week.